All right, welcome back again, good people. I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to watch these quick clips that I'm creating. This particular video I'm titling, "The Nation is Diversifying Even Faster Than Predicted." I did some research this week about the numbers and demographics of the Black population, the Hispanic population, the Asian population, things like that. And I ran across this particular article that was written in conjunction with the census, the 2020 census. And I just had to share it with you guys because I know if you hear things, if we as human beings hear things, we have a tendency to remember it and put things together better. So I wanted to share this information with you. Hopefully you'll get as good of an understanding as I did as I was reading it, because it was kind of fascinating and the title really captivated my attention. Again, the nation is diversifying even faster than predicted. It says, the U.S. Census Bureau just released its last batch of race ethnic population estimates in advance of the 2020 census, with data indicating that the national headcount will reveal a more diverse nation than was previously expected. The new estimates show that nearly 4 of 10 Americans identify with a race or ethnic group other than white, and suggested that the 2010 and 2020 decade will be the first in the nation's history in which the white population declined in numbers. The first ever. Over the decade's first 9 years, racial and ethnic minorities counted for all of the nation's population growth and were responsible for population gains in many states, metropolitan areas, and counties that would have otherwise registered losses due to declines in their white populations. And while the US and more than half of its states have shown absolute declines in populations under the age of 25, such declines were largely due to white losses among youth populations. Now, these declines would have been even greater were it not for youthful gains among racial and ethnic minorities, especially the Latino or Hispanic population. Now, race ethnic minorities are responsible for all national growth. Race ethnic minorities are responsible for all national growth. Keep that in mind. The unanticipated decline in the country's white population means that other racial and ethnic groups are responsible for generating overall growth. Nationally, the US grew at 19.5 million people between 2010 and 2019, a growth rate of 6.3, while the white population declined by a fraction of a percent. Latino or Hispanic, Asian Americans, and Black populations grew by rates of 20%, 29%, and 8.5% respectively. Now, the relatively small population of residents identifying as 2 or more races grew by a healthy 30%, and the smaller Native American population grew by 7.6%. And for most of these groups, natural increases are the primary contributor to growth. Net immigration accounted for 74% Asian American growth, but just 24% of Latino or Hispanic growth. When translated into population totals, Hispanics and Latinos contributed 10 million people, over half of the nation's 2010 to 2019 growth. Asian Americans, Black residents, and persons of 2 or more races contributed 4.5 million, 3.2 million, and 1.7 million people, respectively. These groups constituted the main engines of the nation's growth and are likely to do the same going forward. An important finding in the new census data is the decline of the nation's white population for the third consecutive year. Now, between 2016 and 2019, the white population declined from 197,845,666 to 197,309,822 in yearly amounts of 97,507, 212,957, and 225,380. This 3-year loss of over 500,000 whites was enough to counter gains earlier in the decades, in total yielding a loss of white U.S. residents from 2010 to 2019. Even this relatively small white population decline represents a significant demographic marker. First, if the data is confirmed in the full 2020 census, the 2010 to 2020 decade would be the first decade since the first census was taken in 1790, when the white population did not grow. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Did you know that? It's amazing, isn't it? But you can learn just by watching the video. Now, the white population gains in recent decades have grown smaller over time, from 11.2 million between 1970 and 1980, down to 2.8 million between 2000 and 2010. But a white population loss between 2010 and 2020 would be unprecedented. Second, the Census Bureau was not projecting white population losses to occur until after 2024. This makes any national population growth even more relevant or reliant on other races and ethnic groups. The white demographic decline is largely attributed to its older age structure when compared to other races and ethnicity. This leads to fewer births, more deaths relative to its population size, which makes sense, right? In 2019, the white median age was 43.7 compared to 29.8 for Latinos or Hispanics, 34.6 for Black residents, 37.5 for Asian Americans, and 20.9 for persons identifying as 2 or more races. Now, the new census estimates show that, in contrast to other groups, white Americans sustained a natural decrease. White Americans sustained a natural decrease and excess of deaths over births of 1,073,206 over the 2010 to 2019 period. The loss was partially attained by the net gain of 1,056,594 white immigrants. While the white growth decline could be anticipated, it was accentuated by the past few years by reduction of births among adult white women, likely a delayed reaction to the Great Recession and an uptick in deaths, perhaps associated with drug-related deaths of despair. Also, as with other race ethnic groups, white immigration to the United States recently slowed. Thus, the projected decline in the white population occurred 8 years earlier than census projections predicted, contributing to the lower growth in the US populations. Interesting, right? Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? That's going to cause a response, right? And you can probably see that response. It's like, wait a minute, things are changing, and I like it. And you should like it as well, because, you know, it's time for a change. I agree with that totally. All right, well, listen, I appreciate you listening to that. It took a little bit longer than I wanted to carry this video, but you get the gist. I want you to get kind of a ballpark. It's actually a longer article than that, but you actually get the gist of what's going on, right? And if you didn't really quite understand it because of my missteps, don't worry about that. Just play it again. You'll like it. All right. Again, my name is Larry James. My company is Speak with Larry. And as always, share with someone else what I've shared with you. Bye.